Hey, it's February 14th, and we've got a special Valentine's message today. I just want to say welcome. I'm glad that you're here. We're talking about love and marriage, and I've got some of my friends that are going to be sharing about their marriages, and so I'm glad you've joined along with us today. But before we get into that, my wife's sitting next to me. This is Andrea. I've got something special for you.
You do?
I do. This is the favorite sweetheart Valentine candies,
Wow.
and so I want you to pop it and just read a couple of them.
That is so sweet of you.
I knew you'd have fun with this.
It's a little too much, but thanks. Let's see. All right. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Okay.
Wink,
yeah,
wink.
that's one of my favorites there. What else do you got? Hey, take your time.
Be mine.
Be mine.
Yes.
That's perfect. What
Well,
else you got?
Kiss, kiss.
Ooh. One more.
Cutie pie.
Cutie pie.
Yeah.
Would it be nice if, like, love was that easy? Just a couple of cute little sayings like that. Would it be nice if marriage was that easy? Of course, we know it's not. And what's interesting is Jesus knew it wasn't that easy. In fact, I want to read to you from Mark chapter 10, where verse 7, Jesus is quoting from Genesis 2. He says, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." One of Jesus' favorite places to be able to quote when he's talking about marriage, and he uses the word or emphasizes the word united right there. It means to adhere to or stick to or be attached by a strong tie. You might be thinking that you're stuck in your marriage. That's not what Jesus is talking about right here. He's talking about more of an aggressive, intentional hanging on to, something that you do. It's not like stuck to fly paper and you're trying to get off. It's more like if you were walking along a cliff and you suddenly started falling off and you grabbed onto something and held on to dear life. That's the idea that the passage in Genesis 2 that Jesus is quoting is talking about. And for Jesus, again, this is a fundamental verse for him. And then after he quotes that verse, he says in the next one, "Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." Did you catch what Jesus says about it? If you're a married person, if you're engaged, if you're thinking about getting married, what Jesus says is the most important person in making a marriage happen is not the bride, it's not the groom, it's not the person that's performing the ceremony. It's Jesus saying that it's God who is the one that joins people together. It's God that does the joining. And then he goes on to say, what God joins, let no one separate. And so it's the difference with what Tim Keller says in his book, The Meaning of Marriage. He calls it the difference between a consumer relationship versus a covenantal relationship. Consumer versus covenantal, excuse me. A consumer relationship lasts as long as everybody's happy, right? A vendor's providing something, and so as long as the vendor meets your needs at a cost that's acceptable to you, then everybody's good. But if another vendor comes along and delivers better services at a better cost, you have an obligation, to stay in the relationship until that happens. Individual needs are more important than the relationship. In our Western culture, we kind of operate in those kind of consumer relationship. But a covenantal relationship, on the other hand, it's more of a binding on us. The good of the relationship takes precedence over the immediate needs of the individual. I mean, we get that as a parent. Like a parent gets little emotional input or anything for themselves out of caring for an infant. We still have this emotional stigma that's tied in where a parent doesn't care for that infant because we get the covenantal relationship. You're taking care of somebody else. That's what Jesus is talking about when he says, what God has joined together, let no one separate. And so back to marriage can be hard. You and I have talked about that a lot, and we've been pretty honest with people, even up front, about our struggles and about struggles in marriage, and I think one of the wise things that we probably did several years ago, one of those difficult times, was we invited people to speak into our life. We invited other people to tell us what marriage was like from maybe a few years ahead of time. What are some other things maybe you think that we've done?
I think I love what you said about using kind of like falling off the cliff and hanging on. Like, we have held on. Like, it has not always been easy. We've had hard times. We've had great times. But one of the things that we have always done is we have just clung to each other. But like you said too, we sought other people's counsel, and we looked at people that had gone ahead of us. And there's people here in this church who we deeply admire and who have mentored us throughout the years. And I still call them today. I mean, we've been married 30 years, and I still, hey, Brenda, what do I do with this guy? That kind of thing. So,
and I think what we appreciated is they were always real with us. They never, put on pretenses and made it seem like they had it together. Yeah. It seemed like the more that people were real with us, we could connect with them.
Yeah. Well, I think it just gives you a sense that there's nothing wrong. You're not different than anyone else. And I feel like sometimes in churches, we don't feel free to be transparent or vulnerable. And you actually preached an amazing sermon, I think it was 3 weeks ago, about the strongholds of Satan and how we can combat that with transparency and vulnerability. And I was like preaching behind you, because I think we need to do that. Like, let people know if you're struggling during marriage, like there's someone there that's been through what you're going through. So
absolutely,
be real.
Absolutely. And exactly the reason why we've got some other people on stage. Let me introduce some people, or let them introduce you. Malcolm, Angie, introduce us to yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, where you're at in marriage, that kind of thing.
Okay. My name is Malcolm Mebane, and this is my lovely bride, Angie. And we've been married. We will be married 22 years in May. We have 2 outstanding young men that we've raised, and they're out of the house. Mike is married right now. Noah will be married here in June. So
wow.
Tell us how you guys met. What's your story?
Well, we met at Lowe's, the hardware store.
What?
Interesting. I worked there, and he was a vendor, and we just became friends. And Malcolm was looking for friends.
Yeah, I just moved to Oklahoma, and and it was not a pickup line by any, but I was just looking to meet friends. So, but
I was surprised to read a couple of years ago that as far as marital satisfaction, that it is empty nesters that find themselves, again, this is on average, typical, at the lowest end of the spectrum when it comes to marital satisfaction. Would you guys just speak into that? Do you see how that could be true? And maybe how have you countered that challenge? What have you done to just maintain a great marriage?
You can start.
Well, I think we've just been able to date each other again.
Yeah.
We realize we're on the same team. We married young and have kids young, and so it's kind of been fun actually to do things together. And we're not as busy as we used to be, and so we're kind of on a vacation.
Yeah, I second what Angie said. Is just being able to. We're doing stuff now that we couldn't do when the boys were younger, and just being able to date each other. Our careers have taken off. I mean, that's been a blessing there. While the boys were little, we did the family thing, and which we find that was really important. And Lord bless us with the opportunity to, do other things now.
Yeah.
So
good. So for somebody that maybe is listening today, what advice would you give them? Somebody that is maybe in a similar season of marriage, what advice would you give them that when it comes back to Jesus' words about hanging on, being united, of what God has joined together, let no one separate? What counsel would you give them?
I just, like you said, just hang on. Just know that, there's going to be highs and lows. We have a lot of, Angie and I pick on each other quite often. We have nicknames for each other. And people would probably think it's weird, but she's Butthead and I'm Beavis. But we just we have share a lot of laughs in our home. Angie put up a sign, "Kiss me goodnight before you go to bed." One of those signs above your bed, and so that's kind of the thing that we do. We play jokes on one another, tie each other's shoes, strings together. She even put oil gel on my toothbrush one time, which
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Somewhere you got to draw the line.
That's really funny.
So we just kind of keep it spicy.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Let me introduce somebody else, or again, let them introduce themselves. This is Jason and Addie. Tell us a little bit about where you are in marriage and family.
I'm Jason Stunkard, and this is my wife, Addie Stunkard. And we've been married for 10 years in July. And this coming July. And we've got 2 little girls, Scarlett and Hazel. And they are about to be 5. And Scarlett just turned 3. And we are... I don't know. What else?
So tell us how you met. I want to hear that story, even though I already know it.
I think it's similar to Angie and Malcolm's. We met, I think it was outside of Cherryberry, like not organically. Church friends from Cedar Ridge were going to go eat frozen yogurt, and I got invited as a extended church friend. Jason had just gotten a new truck, and everyone was sitting on his truck bed eating frozen yogurt. That's how we officially met, just as friends for a few months before we started dating.
So you guys are on kind of a completely different spectrum when it comes to marriage, seasons of marriage. You've got 2 little ones at home, which brings some challenges. Jason, I know you work some long hours because you're a part of a family business, farming business, seasonal business. And I know with little ones, that can create some strain on a relationship because it's like you turn around, they're always there, right? You never have time away. And so what maybe you guys speak into that a little bit. How have you found that to be true? And what have you done to maybe go against the flow on that and to maintain a good marriage?
Yeah, it is hard, especially for her with me being gone. Sometimes before the girls wake up and get home after they're already to bed. So it's hard for her because she has to do all the work. It's hard for me because I don't get to see the girls. And
Right.
So I miss them. They miss me. They take it out on her. And, really, it's, I don't know. I'm still not, I don't think I'm super good at it, but try to see them as much as I can. So whether it's them coming to bring me lunch or it's a little bit easier now because they go to preschool 2 days a week. And
Nice.
It's in Bixby, and I have to go to Bixby if I go eat lunch. So it's a good excuse to go spend some time with them. But
I was going to, I guess, not clarify for you, but add on with you that, I think it's also my job to try to give you grace when I'm feeling resentful, that you're so busy, sometimes that can't change. Sometimes we can't see you, and just extending that grace and then recognizing the work you do when you do stay later in the mornings and go into work late, or when you do come home earlier than you probably should have. So I think that has helped specifically in our marriage to give each other grace and try to really appreciate when the other's making the effort. I've been trying to go out to see him out in the country because he can't come to see us as often. And I think both of those have helped, specifically to see each other's face more so the kids can see us more.
Yeah, your least favorite part is I don't have a really set time that I go or come home.
Yeah.
So she hates that. She hates not knowing exactly when I'm going to be home.
I just like
grew up
consistency.
You probably grew up in a family where they work 8 to 5 or what you knew at the hour, and he works all the time. It's hard to.
Yeah, the lesson I learned our first year of marriage, I would say, like, well, when are you going to be home? He's like, when I walk through the door is when I will be home. That was really, and that's wasn't a mean, like, that's just, right. He never knew. And it was really hard for me to, like, not take that personally.
I'm sorry.
I loved watching you guys though, because like that's a real life struggle. Like you have to be at work, but you want him home with the family. That's a real life struggle, and you guys have been creative and you've been compassionate to each other, and you've also been real and vulnerable in our small group, and said it's hard sometimes, and that speaks to people, and sure. I love that about you guys.
Sure. And I heard you talk just a few minutes ago about a date night, making sure that you got time yourself, which is important when you got little ones, because they want to monopolize your time when you guys are together. So what counsel would you give to somebody that's in your season of marriage, got little kids, demanding, you're early in career, one or both of you? What counsel would you give to them?
Jason might have a different answer. For me, I think in this season, it's been important for me to be transparent about when I'm struggling or when I need help or when I'm upset, because when I haven't been honest, it makes it 10 times harder to go back and hash through those issues rather than having the hard moment of saying like, hey, I'm upset about this. We can at least address those issues. And every time I would say like when we've gone through and addressed issues directly, I think we both recognize like we both have the same goal. We both are, like Angie and Malcolm said, like we're on the same team and we're trying to work towards the same goal. So it's a helpful regular reminder to have those discussions together, because more times than not, it's a reminder to me like, oh, we're not actually against each other. Good. And I might not be upset at him. I'm just upset at our circumstance or the world.
Exactly. Exactly.
Probably also not be aware that when you have all of the other stressors, like whenever you talk to your kids, whether you want to or not, it'll come out on them too. So just being aware of that helps, like just the knowledge of that helps you not do it as much.
Good.
So,
hey, for all of you, we're 11 months into a pandemic. And I read a statistic just the other day that this is from the American Family Survey, said 34% of married couples say it has been a strain on their marriage, that just the pandemic itself or the things that we've all had to deal with through it has created a strain on their marriage. For some people, it's been an economic issue. We know for some people it's been maybe more of an emotional or just pressure, being isolated, those kinds of things. So I guess my question to whoever wants to answer that is, have you experienced that? Have you felt some strain in your marriage? And what have you done about that? Anybody want to jump right in there?
As far as the strain, both of us are able to work from home. So if anything, that just being together most of the time, it's actually been a blessing. Just because with my job, I travel quite often, but with COVID, I was on lockdown, basically staying at home. Angie works from home all the time now, so just being able to adjust our schedules and checking in on each other throughout the day, because our offices are in 2 different rooms. So it's just, I think it's just being able to, that's been beneficial to our marriage.
Okay, good. Heard some other people say that same thing. It allowed us to slow down, be able to see each other more maybe, and both of you working at home. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in there? Have you felt it? Has it been stressful for you?
I think our situation's somewhat unique because the farming industry doesn't stop because of a pandemic. And so Jason hasn't gotten, he works from home, like if there's an ice storm, but for the most part, he hasn't gotten the opportunity to like get sick of us because he's home all the time during a pandemic. And I had to work through a lot of envy of other families saying like, this has been such a blessing to like have our, head of the house home and our daddy home and our spouse home. And I'm like, well, I don't get any of that. Like, good for you. And like, that's just me being resentful. And,
you're like,
but I think we've also had to recognize like the blessing of him getting to have a regular job with a regular paycheck, where some people have been furloughed or unemployed and now they're struggling to figure out how they're going to pay their rent. So there is a lot of like checking myself of like, we are really grateful and blessed that you haven't been affected in the negative in that way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It does cause a struggle when like me and the girls we haven't ever had to quarantine at this point, but like if class is canceled because the teacher's quarantined or et cetera, like then we're out 2 weeks at home getting sick of each other while he can't stay home with us. So
yeah,
exactly.
That's hard. What
do you think about for us? Has it, you felt the strain a little bit?
I have. Not that much really in our marriage. Like, I mean, it's been isolating. Like we have a daughter who has a son. Our grandson has, asthma and allergy issues, and then she was pregnant, and so we couldn't be together as a whole family like we normally do, and that was hard. And but I feel really super thankful as well. Like at my industry, we, it was rock solid through the whole year. Greg still has a job. That's good. I feel blessed for all those things, but also like I feel like collectively as a world, like a lot of us are really struggling. If you're at all empathic or sympathetic, most of us haven't lived in a time with so much unrest and uncertainty, and we see people hurting and people in our church family, we've lost people. So, I think, there's been like a strain, not necessarily on the marriage, just in general.
Yeah. Well said there. And I think that's exactly true. And maybe for you, you've experienced that. Maybe it's on a personal level. Maybe for you, for whatever your situation is, there has been some additional pressure on your marriage. And I just want to tell you that's normal and that's okay. We are living in times that we've never lived in before. And so, talk with somebody about it. Share that with somebody else. Have somebody pray with you. Remember that Jesus wants you to keep holding on. You realize there's another reason that God created marriage for a purpose bigger than itself. Marriage is a picture of the believer's relationship with God. I don't know if you ever thought about this before, but the Apostle Paul, after talking about marriage, and it's in a section where, he's talking about husbands, love your wives as Christ has loved the church. He quotes from Genesis 2, but there in Ephesians 5, he says, this is a profound mystery. He's talking about marriage, talking about husbands and wives. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. See, marriage is an earthly picture of the spiritual relationship that exists between Christ, the bridegroom, and his church, the bride. In fact, somebody described marriage as God's doing with one man and one woman that which he is always trying to do within the world as a whole. I love that. That's why it's important for you and I as followers of Jesus to develop and work at this Christ-honoring marriage relationship and, just put everything into it. You're working on a portrait of Christ and his church, and the world is looking at you. The world's looking at us, and God's glory is at stake, and we need strong, godly marriages, even during difficult times like this right now. Hey, give a big thanks to the Mebbins and the Stunkards and Andrea. I appreciate all of them for sharing with us. I'm going to pray with us, and then we'll be done. Father, thank you so much for loving us and for sending Jesus for us. And Father, for the way that you created families and created marriages, and Father, even for the reflection that the marriage between believers shows Jesus and his church. And so, Father, I'm praying for marriages that are struggling right now. God, would you give them an extra measure of your grace just to simply hold on? Father, would you cause good things to happen? Father, would you help us just to be more open about our marriages and to hold on and to build one another up? We want to honor you with our marriages. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.